Before I begin today's video, I just want to say that with the current climate of what's going on right now, I have two things that I want to offer. First, in the description and the pinned comment down below, you will see a bunch of petitions and ways that you can help the Black Lives Matter movement that's going on. I will also flash the URL to the website that you can go to for you to help out with this situation. I've always been an ally towards those that are people of color, so I hope you can join me in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. There's also a video that I'm going to highlight in the description and pinned comment down below on a black furry's perspective on things. It's kind of long, it's like half an hour long, but all of it is a pretty good perspective if you really want to know more about what it's like living as a black person in America. Again, all of that below in the description and the pinned comment down below. Anyways, back to our regularly scheduled video.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. In this video, I'm going to be doing something a little different. So I have been gathering a couple of questions for a Q&A video about my time that I spent over in China. If you didn't know, I was an ESL teacher over in mainland China, over in the city of Suzhou, and that was between the first week of September all the way to the first week of August. And since some of you may not know everything there is to know about China or what it's like to teach English over there, I'm going to be doing a couple of Q&A videos just for those that are curious. So let's not waste any more time, let's go ahead and roll right into this. First question I will be answering is, how long did it take for you to get over the culture shock? Which is always a good question to ask whenever you're traveling overseas for an extended period of time. Like anytime you go to a different country or a different area and you find something that just conflicts completely with your perspective and your senses, it always feels a little weird and disorientating.
I just realized now in editing that I forgot to actually answer what the question actually was, not what gave me culture shock, but how long did it take me to get over it? And the answer to that is not very long, just because if you stay somewhere for like a year, you're eventually just going to get used to things. So I would say maybe like a couple months or so.
There were a couple of events that I would describe as culture shock. The first one being when I was doing my job training over in Beijing. I had heard that China was a place that you had to throw away the toilet paper instead of flushing it down the toilet just because of how their pipe systems worked. That was okay, I was fine with that. But there was something that I did neglect. So I was at a different facility, just kind of auditing, just kind of watching other teachers, taking notes on what they do, what they did right, what they could have done better. And in between sessions, I have to go to the bathroom. So I head on over there to the little restroom facility that is inside of the school, this English school basically, which is different from a public or private school. It's basically just a center for kids to go and learn English. More on that later. Anyway, after doing my business, I look around and see, oh, well, there's no toilet paper stocked here. I'm gonna have to talk to someone about that. Because over here in America, in other Western countries, you know, you have toilet paper inside of the restroom. Not in China, apparently. What I was told once I walked over to the office, the teacher's office area, is that China just doesn't supply its own toilet paper in public restroom facilities. You gotta do that yourself. And I was actually kind of shocked because I still had stuff to do that day and I couldn't just walk off and run over to like, I don't know, a convenience store nearby and just buy a little pack of tissues just to use for toilet related business. So I kind of had to run around with, you know, a poopy butt for a little bit. But eventually I got that taken care of. Don't worry. The other thing I would consider culture shock is something that, you know, other Asian countries don't really have, but in China, it's kind of normalized that you have your babies or your toddlers have certain little outfits or clothing where they can easily, freely use the bathroom anywhere. Now, it usually is strategic. It's not just out in the open, don't worry. It's strategic. It's like a bush wee, where you go over to the bush, hide, and do your business, and then you walk back into the public eye as if nothing happened. Usually that's the case with these little toddler and baby onesies with the hole around the crotch area. But there was one incident as I was heading to work, walking along the sidewalk and all that, past all the busy cars rushing by, all the other busy people walking around me. I hear this one little girl, could have been like 4 or 5 years old, maybe 3, I don't know, a little bit older than a toddler. And she complains to her mother, and she's jumping up and down, and the mother's just like, oh, okay, fine, we're doing this. Just undresses the little girl's pants and underwear, and then she just, does her thing. And I have to just kind of walk away. Oh God, no, I don't know. That is not common, but it did happen before my very eyes. And I did not expect to see that day. Now, there are many other differences that China has with the US in particular, but none as impactful as those memories. I spent quite a while on that last question. I'm gonna move on to the next one. Next up, how claustrophobic did you feel? Like, if you've been to a big city, Los Angeles, Dallas, Atlanta, New York City, then you know what it's like to be in a big group or a big crowd of people. That's not uncommon in anywhere in the world. I think the only thing that would make me feel claustrophobic is when I use public transportation. In specific times, you will find yourselves packed like sardines just to get from point A to point B along the subways underground, sometimes in the buses when there's just no room to sit. So you just kind of have to get used to that sometimes. If you pick an inconvenient time, which is like, if you go on the train during rush hour, like, of course there's going to be a bunch of people that also have the same idea that you have. Just getting along the train and heading home or something. With the way that my work schedule was actually, so the facility that I worked at over in China wasn't an actual public or private school. It was an English learning center. It was basically a cram school. It's just an after-school kind of a thing that children go to prep up on their English language skills. I basically worked afternoons to evenings during the weekdays, and on the weekend it was basically 9 to 5. So it was pretty easy just to take a bus to work and not have it be that crowded during that afternoon. Because most people have 9 to 5 jobs, and I only had 9 to 5 on the weekend. So I didn't get to feel that claustrophobic over in China. Speaking of which, next question, how was getting around in China? Pretty easy, honestly. China has its public transportation down pretty well. You have buses you can take, you have the high-speed rail, you have subways, you can take a taxi. What I like to do sometimes, actually, there will be people that hang out with their e-bikes and look for foreigners just needing a ride somewhere. It's kind of like a rickshaw service, or a tuk-tuk as they call it in Thailand and other spots in Southeast Asia. But sometimes I just kind of like walking to places because there's a lot of great spots you can go to within walking distance that's easily accessible via foot traffic. There are plenty of shopping malls, there are plenty of shopping centers, there are plenty of parks and gardens and just cool places to go to that you could just walk around. I did try to rent a bike at one time. That was an interesting experience because over in China they have something called a social credit score. Think of it like a rating that you have for your credit card, but applied to the purchases that you make. Like, as in judging you as a person, not just how much money you spend. Or at least that's one factor of it. I never got a full explanation of what a social credit score was. All I know is that my score was low enough that I could not rent a bike. Crazy, right? I offer such a great service to the Chinese peoples. I teach their children English, and yet I cannot rent a bike because my social credit score is just not good enough. But I really didn't need personal transportation like I do here in the United States. I could just take public transit and that's okay. Going into other possibly political territories, was finding a VN as big of an issue as I hear it is? Or are they plenty to pick from? There are plenty of VPNs that you can use, and I guess most of them pretty much work in China. The one that I chose was NordVPN. Problem was that when I was using NordVPN, it did slow down my Wi-Fi speeds whenever I would use them. Like normally people use VPNs just to skate by and change their location, just like hide their private info, or to watch something that's on the Canadian Netflix rather than the US Netflix or something. I had to use it just because China has something called the Great Firewall. It's the government-sanctioned firewall that blocks somewhere like 40 to 60% of the known World Wide Web for various reasons. You know, obscenity and pornography, anything that's critical of the Chinese Communist Party because they feel like it, I don't know. And you might think, well, how does social media work over there? Simple, they have their own versions. Instead of Facebook, instead of Twitter, instead of Instagram, you have Douyin, you have QQ, you have WeChat, you have Weibo. I didn't use them that much because they mainly relied on you being able to read the Chinese language. So I just stuck with my NordVPN and used my usual kinds of social media websites and all of that business. I would say do not be tempted by something like a free VPN. NordVPN, you have to pay in order to use it. I got a 3-year plan from NordVPN and it cost like $100 total, which is a pretty good deal. And I reason if you have to pay for it, that usually means that you're paying it with your money and not your privacy. Facebook, the only reason that Facebook is free is because they sell your data to third-party companies. I think that's the same case with these free VPNs. These VPNs where, oh, you don't have to pay for anything. It's free to use. There's a reason why it's free, and you can probably guess why. Let's get on to the next question then. What all language issues did I run into? The Chinese language is different from the English language, very much so. I had to learn this just trying to figure out the language before heading to China, figuring out the language while inside China, and I'm still learning new things post-China as well. I mean, the sentence structure of the Chinese language is kind of similar. You can basically get away with a simplified English sentence, translate it into Chinese, and you can kind of get your point across, but your vocabulary and your language skills isn't going to be that great if you do not have two things mastered. First is pronunciation. Second is tone. Chinese is a tonal language. You can say a mouth noise in a different tone, and it can mean a completely different thing from another mouth noise with a different tone. There is a big difference between
你吃了吗?
and
你吃了吗?
one means have you eaten, the other means you ate the horse. I don't even know if that's the proper way to say that sentence, but like, that's the trouble you run into with Chinese. But I was able to get around with one little trick, and that is gesturing. If you are hungry and you are looking for a restaurant, you could probably like tap someone on the shoulder and go, hey, hey, hey. And you can go, rubbing your belly, look, I don't know. And they can basically gather that you're saying, I'm hungry, I'm looking for a place to eat, where do I go? When I went to a Watson's, which is basically like a CVS kind of department store where they sell like shower and makeup and other bathroom supplies. Not really medicine or anything. It's not like a pharmacy, it's just like a beauty supply kind of a thing. So maybe not like CVS, I don't know. And I couldn't remember how to say like razor blade or something in the Chinese language. So I was just kind of like, do you have and I was like, I know where that is, right over there. When I was looking for deodorant, I was like, excuse me, where? And they're like, oh, that's over there. That's also a principle that you use when you teach English to little kids. You can basically do little gestures to help put the images in their mind. It's like sign language almost. So when you say something like car, then they think, oh, car. If you just say the word car, they're just like, okay, car. Speaking of language issues, what was the most complex or difficult word you learned? Since it's Chinese, I assume you could bring out a Chinese character with a large stroke number. So there's two answers that I have for this. The first one is the word that I had the most trouble with, just struggling to pronounce it right. And it's this word right here for toilet. One of the most basic needs a human has, and they put it behind this word, 厕所.
厕所
Half the time, people would understand what I was saying. The other half of the time, they couldn't figure out what I was saying. And it was really bad, because sometimes I really had to go, and I just could not get the tone right for the word bathroom. It sucked so bad.
卫生间
In terms of writing Chinese, there is a noodle dish that you can get up in the north or northwest kind of area. It's called something like biang biang noodles. And the way you write biang is like so. Yeah, that'll be fun to write down. Oh, but don't worry, there's a simplified version of it. Boom. Isn't that easy? I'll even put them side by side. Here you go. Now, granted, there is a alternative name for it that goes like this.
油泼扯面
Like they figured out that this kind of noodles had to be written out in a way that people could actually read and not take 5 billion years just to stroke the thing to life. Okay, let's do one more question. This will probably be the last one. Would I have stayed there, or do I have any plans to go back? I do have plans to go back someday, but the reason that I didn't stay is, well, there are a few reasons why. First of all, NordVPN, it just kind of stopped working one day. That really put a dent into my internet freedom. Like, how am I supposed to talk to my family and friends online if I can't use a VPN to talk to them through, I don't know, Facebook or whatever? I did eventually come up with a secondary solution, just a temporary thing. There was someone over in the Hong Kong area that set up a little server through, what is it called, ShadowSocks. It's kind of a VPN service, but I didn't have to really pay for it just because he did it as a favor for me, even though I could totally afford to pay him for like the month's worth of service that I used through the VPN. But that was much slower than NordVPN's service is. So, man, that was tough. Oh well, I gotta wait for this video to buffer in 360p. Oh man, I'm so excited. There was also the notion that I was just feeling kind of homesick. I wanted to go back and see my family again. I wanted to see my friends again. So when I saw there was a chance for me to break contract and travel outside of China, I kind of just took that. It also gave me a chance to fly around and go to different countries. That was an absolute blast and a great idea in hindsight. Like, there were some little struggles I had getting between countries sometimes because the amount of luggage that I was carrying with me, I was basically carrying every single personal item that I had on my body that I could take with me on an airplane, and it wasn't even all the things that I had on me. So I still had to go to the airport and ship just tons of boxes of stuff over to my house over in Texas, and that was pretty expensive. Like, I had the money saved up in order to do that, but it still cost me quite a bit. But I reiterate, it was still a good idea just to get out of China for a while. Well, I say a while, I don't know if I'm ever going back. I would love to go back. I would love to meet the Chinese furries again. I loved hanging out with them in Shanghai, Suzhou, over in Shenzhen. But until then, I am stuck here in the US. I'm still going through the process of getting my work visa and work permit and all of that figured out for Taiwan. I had some trouble dealing with the local embassy over, well, I say local, it's in Houston, which is like, God, hundreds of miles away from Dallas. So it's not like I can just drive on over there and hand them a document and then drive on back. So I mentioned in my streams, my gaming streams, that I was heading to Taiwan sometime around early July. That's looking to be closer to late July. It's not that much of a delay. I had to wait a pretty long time just to get over to China when I was first applying for that job. Like, the interview was during February, and after getting everything processed, I didn't head over there until like September or late August. So I'm used to waiting, as long as I have some sort of income and hobby and a bunch of cool friends to hang out with until then, and all the entertainment on the world over on the internet and such. I think that'll be where I will conclude this Q&A video. I haven't talked about my teaching methods. I didn't talk about what the kids were like, what the school was like, other little cool things that I saw in China. But that just gives you a chance to ask those questions in the comments down below. Go ahead and comment on something that I haven't talked about yet that you are very curious about, and that will be saved for the next Q&A video. All the questions that I had gathered for this video today are from close friends of mine, are from other people that I've talked to on Telegram and Discord and all that. You can also submit a question through there, through my social media. That would be my Telegram, my Twitter, and my Instagram. There's my Discord name down there as well. There's a link to my TikTok. I guess you could send me a private message there. I haven't done much private messaging on TikTok, but you'll also see a link to my Discord server. This is the server, free of access. You can totally join it. You don't have to pay a single cent just to join the Discord server. It's for all the people that watch my video, that are fans of my content, that like furry content in general. You can talk about furry stuff there, movies, cartoons, you can share memes. You can talk about China and stuff over there on my Discord server as well. Although, down there in the description, you also see my Patreon. If you pay at least $1 every month on my Patreon, you will get early access to videos like this. You will see early access to reviews, to vlogs, all sorts of videos that are on my YouTube channel. You can also get special perks on my Discord server if you are part of my Patreon. Depending on how much you pay per month, you will get dedicated channels and chat rooms to mingle amongst yourselves. Also, if you are a small business or an artist, I will be your billboard if you would like to sponsor one of my videos. Anything you want to advertise on one of these videos. It could be your commission prices, it could be a project that you're working on. Anything that you want, that will be on my Patreon. Again, all of that is in the description below. That's my social media, my Discord server, my Patreon. If you liked the video, you can give it a like. If you did not like the video, just give one of these bad boys. And you can subscribe to this channel if you like what you see and you want to see more of this content. I do suggest that you watch a couple more of my videos as well. I do not want you to commit to something that you're not interested in, you know. But that's that. I can't wait to hear your questions. I can't wait to see what people are curious about, you know, China and heading overseas and stuff, and teaching English to people whose native language is not English. This has been Lightning Runner with this Q&A video, and I will see you in the next video. See ya!